Hi, I'm Mac McCarthy, and I help people with their breakups and relationship issues. Today, we're going to get into Breakup Tips 101. My ex always had to win the argument and was never sorry. If this was a theme in your relationship or this resonates with you, be thankful you're out of the relationship. One of the things that you don't realize until you break up and you sit in the breakup for maybe like 1 month, 2 months, 3 months is that you were in training to deal with that person. So if you were with that person 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, what you're doing is subconsciously, you're just picking up their habits and their patterns, and you're learning ways to deal with it. And depending on your character, your personality, and what you want and the outcomes, people pleasers, for example, are great for people that always have to win arguments. They become doormats, they lay down, and they don't care, right? They just are like, all right, I don't want to rock the boat here. I don't want to play around. And people like this, they actually despise the person for being weak. But at the same time, if the person has any sort of argument or point to make, they just drop it to the ground immediately. They don't listen to what they have to say because they're always right. And the other person's weak, needy, or just not as smart as them. And there's a lot of relationships like this. People can accept it, but later on, when they're out of the relationship, they're like, wow, even when this person would say sorry, it was a half-ass sorry, or it was a sorry that uh, also included some kind of blame game. Okay, so this is just a very common theme in relationships. And this could be in a relationship with someone you work with. This could be a friendship. There's a lot of people that stay in friendships way too long because, it's been my friend since high school, and we've been through a lot. But they're people like this, right? They're never wrong. And as you become an adult with your own opinions and you start to have more knowledge and wisdom away from those people, then you realize, wow, they might be wrong. Okay. People, when you were young, like your parents, might have always got to win the argument because they're the authority figure and they have all the power. But when you're in a relationship and someone always has to win, if you ever come back to that relationship, so a lot of people, okay, we broke up. I just want to get back with them. I'm lonely. I miss them. The intimacy was outstanding. They're the greatest person in the world. They're so hot. They're lovely. They're this, they're that, right? You with me? They stay on that level. Now, here's the thing. If you come back to that person 6 months later, have lunch with them, converse with them, and you haven't been around them in a long time, you'll start to notice, wow, I used to deal with this shit all the time. Oh, they're doing it again. I forgot they do this all the time. They're making me the bad guy. The difference is when you're in the relationship, right? You're just used to it. It's subliminal. It's subconscious. You're going to deal with it. You're not going to break up with them. You're living together, right? You're just going to deal with it. When you go to lunch 6 months later, it's like you're going to go back to your house. They're going to go back to their house. You get away from it and you're removed from it. It's almost like this. Let me give you an example. And this might be a bad example for some people. Andrew Aragon, how you doing, bud? Um, this is a great perspective. So just to put this in, and this might not land for everyone because this is how it is with perspectives. But let's say that there was a period in my life where I liked to drink beer. I wasn't an alcoholic or anything like that, but like to have a cold beer on the weekends. And probably a couple years in my early 30s, I drank more heavily than I do now. I probably drink 3 or 4 times a month now. And if I do, I have 1 or 2, and I don't really drink beer. Years back, I made a vow to just quit drinking. My dad had got really sick. Part of it was because of drinking. And so I was like, you know what? I'm just going to take a year away from drinking. I didn't have a problem. I wasn't missing work, wasn't overweight, anything like that. Just like, you know what? I don't want to have this habit moving forward. And I'm just going to see if I can not drink for the year. So what I did was, so first you set the intention, like, I'm not going to drink. My reason was, I was like, look, my dad's just had a stroke. Part of the reason I think he had the stroke was over drinking, alcoholism, but it wasn't the only reason. That being said, I was just like, you know what? He's going to have to quit drinking. I'm going to see if I can do this too. He didn't ask me to do it or anything like that. But here's the thing. I was just like, I'm just gonna do it for a year. If I want to have a drink in the future, I can because I've never had full blown alcoholic problem. Never. After that year, which to be honest with you, I drank within that year maybe, I don't know, 5 to 10 times. Right. I definitely didn't drink for 2 or 3 months. But here's an interesting thing. When I had my first beer after like 6 months of not drinking beer, beer tastes like shit. Someone out there might be going, well, you probably were drinking the wrong beer. My point was, is like, I tasted it, I was like, ugh. It tasted sugary. It tasted off. Like it did. I wasn't enjoying it. Well, for years, I just had been drinking beer, kind of this thing that you get a buzz or you relax. Coming back to it, it didn't taste as good. It's the same thing when you deal with someone in a relationship or a breakup and you come back to them 6 months or a year later and you've had a break and you're like, wow, the way you're acting, I just don't vibe with it anymore. Like, I don't want to play that game. That's not fun. You'll find the same thing happens is if you hang out with an old friend, like I said, from high school or college or someone you used to work with 10 years ago, 15 years ago. And let's say you went in a different direction career wise, that person stayed where they're at, which isn't a bad thing. And you ventured off, met a lot of other people and changed quite a bit. You'll come back to that person and your perspective of the way they act, the way they do things, the way they interact with you will be completely different because you're different now and your perspective's different and you're like, "Ah, I don't want to interact that way anymore." This is really interesting because there's people that have emailed me or called me after we've done a breakup coaching session and they've complained about maybe this issue specifically. Like they always blame me or and they don't say that they always have to win. It's usually more specific. But then I'll say, good. I'll say, look, where you're headed and where they're headed, it sounds like you're in different directions. And if you met again, because like sometimes people have been broken up for a month, 2 months, 3 months, and you can just tell they're like this, they're going in different directions. And I'll say, if you do get that meetup that you want so bad, like you want this meetup, right? You want to see them so bad. I go, if you have 3 months, 6 months away from them, when you meet up with them, you might feel like, oh my God, they're the same. The only difference is when you live together or when you were together, you had no out. You had no place to catch your breath to assess the situation, right? You couldn't really change the game. When you're away from it and you come back to it, it's just like I said, it's like when I had that first beer, I was like, oh, this beer tastes nasty. Doesn't taste good. I'd rather have water. You're changing your palate, right? And so it really takes you getting away from something like that to realize it because you're actually training yourself to interact with someone like that. And the more you interact with someone and know how to react and know the comebacks, it's comfortable. And some people just don't want to leave. So I'm going to get through the points here. Andrew Aragon, thanks for sharing. I rarely drink now. True, I grew. When I said that, my ex was still the same. I was like, bye. It's hard to deal with people that are always correct. They have no idea that pretty much most of what we come up with as human beings is opinion based, and it's opinion based on a biased. Okay. There's factual things and then a lot of things, and a good way to just weed this out, and you'll hear me say it too, because I'm giving my opinion a lot. Now, there's a difference between an educated opinion, a knowledgeable opinion, excuse me, an opinion based on some kind of substance or experience, where someone just goes, and this is how it comes out. I think means I don't know. And that's completely fine. That's when you hear I think, consider the source, ask more questions. Some aren't able to see what their problem is. That's exactly true. So, number one, my ex always has to win. There's the blame game. Some people are just, this is what they do. They find out where they can blame you. In some cases, that's how they live their whole life. It's a very low frequency to be in. We've all been there in some walks of life, blame someone, and maybe even had some reasons to blame someone. At the end of the day, when you get to a point in your life and you take responsibility or accountability for everything, which is extremely difficult for a lot of people, myself included, because I just said for everything. I didn't say take accountability for some things. Okay. So a lot of people can do that. But the blame game is it's the opposite. And if you allow someone to blame you for things repeatedly or let you fall on the sword for everything in a relationship, they'll keep doing it because it makes them feel good. It makes them feel righteous. And it'll become a pattern. Okay. And that's why if you start accepting being blamed for something, now I'll tell you one thing that's really a no-no. Someone starts blaming you with a false narrative, something that's just not true. You need to stop them in their tracks while they're talking and go, that's just not true. So if someone was to say, like, oh, I know you've been cheating with my girlfriend. I'm talking about a girlfriend and her girlfriend. And she's like, oh, I know you've been cheating with my best friend. And you're like, that's just not true. The minute you entertain that and you argue it more and more, it makes you look a little bit more guilty. Your energy's involved. You're actually starting to think like, maybe I do like her subliminally. Like the minute you engage in a false narrative, you're actually making it somewhat true to that person and to yourself. Because if something's completely false, what are you even engaging in? Right? If I said, hey, you're a phone, you're going to be like, Mac, you're nuts. Like, I'm not even going to argue with you. But there's relationships where women or men create false narratives that people argue, like, I never did that. I didn't say that. I didn't go there. And it's like, just stop for a minute. Hey, look, what you're saying is just not true. That's that. If we're going to debate or we're going to argue and we're going to create some story that I'm supposed to defend myself about or explain myself about, let's not let's keep it nonfiction rather than fiction. If someone can't go there, you're in a world of trouble throughout the relationship because that'll actually get worse. Because as relationships get deeper, more ingrained, okay, people will dig into those tendencies more and more. Number two, the trump card that always comes back to they just to check you. So this is a big one. I think a lot of people can relate to this. I've had many clients say this before. And tell me in the comments if this has happened to you before, or if you guys have a question or a topic you want me to touch on, let me know. Also, if anyone wants to come on the channel today to ask some questions about their situation, I'm going to put a link here and I'll get to you in a moment. But let me get through the stuff first. But with StreamYard, we can do that. So the trump card, what I mean by that is, let's say you're in a relationship for 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years. You've done something, let's just say it was true. You got caught, maybe, all right, for example, this is a big one. You've been together 2 years. You had an ex that had been calling you or texting you. Let's say calling you and texting you. You didn't tell your girlfriend. You didn't tell her because you didn't want her to overreact and you didn't really have feelings for your ex, but you didn't want to block your ex because you guys are still cool. You got me? This is a narrative that happens a lot. Somehow your current girlfriend found out, looks through your phone, and is like, "Why are you talking to Tammy? Why are you talking to Tammy? Isn't that your ex?" "Yeah, that's my ex." "Why didn't you tell me you're talking to your ex?" "Well, she just had some financial problems. She lost her job. She was just hitting me up, and you know what? I don't have feelings for her anymore, but I feel bad for her, so I talked to her." The girlfriend's like, "I don't want you talking to your ex. I want you to delete the phone number. I don't find it okay." So let's just say the guy goes, "You know what? I can understand where you're coming from. I don't want you talking to your exes either. I'll delete the number. I won't talk to her again. I didn't realize it would hurt you this much. And I did lie, or I did keep it from you. Excuse me." It's done, right? And there was no like emotional cheating evidence where you guys were sending each other naked pictures or flirting. It was like one of those things where she really just reached out, let you know she was in a hard time, or hey, how have you been? And you interacted, and that was a no-no for your girlfriend. The problem is when someone always has to win an argument, they keep that one in their back pocket. And so what they do is, like, every time you argue, maybe a year later, they're like, "Oh, remember when we started talking to your ex Tammy?" And you're like, "Gonna bring that up again?" And nothing severe happened. It's like, "I thought you already forgave me for that. I never even followed up." I've had a client like this before. He was in a 6 year. He's like, every time we got in a fight, she would just bring up that I talked to my ex a couple of times. And he's like, she lived in a different country and she was going through some hard times. And I'll admit I talked to her, but like I didn't talk to her for years. That's the trump card. That's the bam. And then then the argument switches from present moment issues to, remember when you did this really bad to me? So you should give into this moment right now, which is a completely different argument. You should get on your knees and say sorry to me because of what you did before, which makes what you do now worse. That's just twisted. It's very common though. It's very manipulative and it's exhausting. So what, especially for men's, because sometimes men will be like, I just want to make up. How many guys can relate to, I just want to make up. I don't want to argue anymore. I don't want this. Like, I'm not that emotionally invested in this argument. Can we just make up? Can we cuddle? Can we kiss and make up? Literally. Like, I don't want to keep going with this. And the woman will be like, well, you did this. It's like, okay, I did it. So he lays down, falls on the sword. And then she knows every time I want to win an argument, I drop that card and he'll just give in. Now, the problem with that is that you're thinking like, oh, well, then fight back. Well, if you're dealing with someone that always has to win, then the fight just keeps going. The problem is that people run in patterns. Those patterns carry storylines or narratives. If you start accepting those storylines and those narratives, you'll start changing your perspective of yourself, and that's a real fucking problem. Number 3, the I'm sorry, I'm not perfect, half-ass sorry. So let's just say someone always has to win or they never say sorry. They somehow find a way to say sorry, but it's not complete. Or at the end of the sorry, it's like, "Yeah, I'm sorry, but remember when you did this? Yeah, I'm sorry, but, because of my childhood or my past traumas, um, that's why it happened." Now, if that happens early in the relationship, someone's defining something you don't know, like maybe first 6 months, 3 months. Alright, take note. Alright, this person has some personal traumas. There's a minefield around this particular topic, fine. If someone continues to do that in, like, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, it's a fucking problem. It's a big problem. So if you get, like, a half-ass sorry where some like, sorry is like, "I'm sorry for doing this. I apologize. I was wrong for this." It's clean, it's to the point, it's not dragged out. It shows some kinda level of care and responsibility. That's a good sorry. A sorry that's like, "I'm sorry, but" I'm sorry directly into another direction of more about me is a problem, right? Okay? Black screen still on deck, the imposter. There's a meme somewhere with the guy in his sleeping bag on the porch with the caption, winning an argument with the wife. And a lot of people think about, oh, this is just, I haven't heard this in a while, but I had a friend that used to go, happy wife, happy life. And he'd give in to everything. And doing that, his relationship got progressively more give in, give in, give in. That's a bad theme to go on. And some people think it's funny and it's cute. Um, but really, unless you're that kind of a person, like some people's personality and character types are like they can take a lot of shit. That's just what they've done. They can they can take L's. If you're doing it, you're probably building resentment over time. And like I said, there's these cute little jokes about it. Ha ha ha. Doesn't seem fun. That's why a lot of guys, when they're late 30s, early 40s, are like anti-marriage. And so, oh, why doesn't there a commitment? Because there's this narrative out there, oh, that you just have to give in to everything. My ex did this to me. I reacted this way. So this is very common in a very delicate situation. So, and this should be learned in the beginning of the relationship. Well, I have this trauma because my ex one time, um, you know, didn't pick me up from work, left me hanging, whatever. My ex did this to me, so I reacted to you in this way. Okay, that's a real thing. Take note of it. If you start to see that being an excuse like a year, 2 years, 3 years, all the time, or the same excuse over and over again, then all right, so how are we going to combat this? Do you need therapy over this? Do we need to have a talk about this? That I'm a different person at a different time. And then also, you have to sit to the sidelines and ask yourself, be mindful, unattached, talk to a coach like myself, talk to someone else out there, get a second opinion, and go, wait a minute, am I being manipulated here? Did what I did similar to what they're saying happened before? Can I ride with this? Number 5, if someone's so ego based, so they're really good looking, they get a lot of attention, they're extremely rich, they're a boss at their work. These people have big egos, and sometimes it's not even their fault. It's just that, they're a superstar in whatever they do. They're rich. People bow down to them quite easily. These are the type of people that a lot of times they have to win an argument because they're used to winning an argument. So CEOs of companies are like this. People that have been, they have someone that has a personal assistant or secretary. Doesn't mean they're bad people. It just means that they're used to having people under them that don't argue, that take orders, that do what they say. And I've seen this repeatedly in relationships. When they get in a relationship, they carry that over, right? They carry it over, and it's a really bad look for your relationship. And if you're wondering, like, why are they talking to me? How do they speak with people throughout the day? I've known a few people like this that they've owned businesses. They have a personal assistant. They have a secretary. They treat their girlfriend like that. It's not so much what they can do. It's just control. It's orders. It's scheduling. Some people like that, and some people let it go. I'm saying long term in a relationship, it builds resentment, and it's going to end at some point. Number 6, they change the story to fit their objective. So something happened, you were both there or witness of it, and the story somehow changed. It's like, I don't think that's what happened. What's up, Claire? I don't think that's what happened. And then it's like, I was there. It's like, no, I know that my friend was offended by what you said at the party. It's like, I don't know. Your friend seemed pretty cool. I mean, I was just joking around, but I didn't feel like she was that upset about what I said. No, she was pissed. And you're like, in the back of your head, you're like, I read people pretty well. I don't think they were that pissed at me. No, you really offended her. You embarrassed her. Did she tell you I embarrassed her? No, but I could tell. That's perspective from you. That's secondhand information. But you have to ask yourself, what's the objective in you making me defensive? What's the objective here in you putting me on my back foot, explaining myself? What's the objective? Like, what are you getting at this? What's your intention? You're really trying to help your friend, right? So when narratives change, and the most common narrative is you've been cheating. I know you like this person. That's one of the most common narratives for what? An insecure or jealous partner. They know. They know you've been talking to so and so. They know that you've been screwing around. And if it's not true, they still have to carry it on. And here's the reason why. You're like, well, what's their objective? Someone might go, well, they're just jealous. What would be the objective though? Think about this for a minute. You got a jealous partner, and they keep accusing you of things you haven't done that would lead to cheating. What would be their objective in accusing you of this? It might seem simple to you. I'm just wondering what people think it is in the comments. The objective is just to be right. It's not to find out the fucking truth. It's just to support the fact, I think this, I'm never wrong, I'm highly intelligent, what I think is always true, and I don't like to be wrong, so I must be right. Did you get what I meant by that? So, like, that's what's really hard to deal with jealous or insecure people because what they're doing on a deeper level, it's like, "Well, I'm right." It's like, "Okay, so I'm telling you right now, I didn't text that person. I'm telling you right now, I don't have a relationship. I'm telling you right now, I'm not even attracted to that." This is a very common one for guys with a jealous girlfriend or a woman with a jealous boyfriend. "No, I know you like him. I know you were checking him out. I know you're wearing that outfit because" somehow in their sick mind, they know. Now, when someone knows or thinks, they don't wanna be wrong. That's why it's like why when people say like, "Oh, do affirmations, do intentions and things like that," because it's very important. The words you put in your mouth, you're intending that to happen. So, it was just hard for him to ever apologize. I'll get to that in a moment, Claire. Good question, hun. Um, the objective is them to be right, because if they were wrong, then it would take the air out of their balloon. They would have to look in the mirror and be like, "Okay, wait a minute. Maybe I'm wrong here." And a lot of people don't like to be wrong. A lot of people, especially, this is ironic too. These people aren't experts at relationships. They don't have a background in it. Um, and to be fair, I've been doing this 6 years. When I was in my 20s, you just go on things. You just think you know things because you read something, but really you're just going on feelings with objectives. And that's the dangerous part. If someone just has jealousy in them or insecurity in them, it's not your fault, but they'll make it your fault, right? Because they're filtering for that, and they're so insecure that it has to be true because they don't wanna come up with the idea, "Maybe I'm just insecure," right? The other things people say, "Oh, well, their dad always cheated or their last partner cheated." Well, clean that up on your own time. Clean that up on your own time, right? So when they change the story to fit their objective, th the objective is just to be right, and why would someone wanna be right? Because it doesn't feel good to be wrong. It's an ego boost. It's an ego deflation, right? Number 7, well, love doesn't mean that perspective. Their perspective is number 1. So this you'll hear this online unknown. I'll get to you in a moment. Please keep the comments coming. Any questions, I'll get to them in a moment, I promise. Let's get to this really quick. I see this repeatedly on YouTube interviews, and it's personally it makes me cringe sometimes a little bit because people go, people think love means this. You know what love means? I've seen this repeat like, if you could tagline one thing from popular podcasters, influencers, people that have, like, authority over a large community, they'll redefine things as if they're Webster's dictionary, but really it's just their perspective. Like, love is a perspective thing, I'm sorry. I like to hear I would like to hear your perspective on love. But there's no, even though there's, well, love means this. That's not what love is. To you, it's a word. Now, when you start clarifying what it means to you, I'm like, "Oh, that's interesting." And someone else is like, "Well, love means this to me. Love means this to that person." You don't define things that way. You gotta realize that, okay? Like, so when you hear someone, "Oh, this guy's a Stanford doctor and he's a neurosurgeon and he's discussing the meaning of love. It must be true." Doesn't mean he's wrong. It's just a fucking opinion. Oh, this is how attraction is. There's some truth to that. It's still an opinion. Oh, studies show of 1,000 people. Newsflash, there's 7 billion people. We have 1,000 that we did a study on, so it must be true. Okay. a really good conversation, seek to understand, not to be understood. It's like you get someone's opinion on love and you're like, that seems twisted as fuck. Like, that's your opinion of love? The answer would be like, really? So how'd you come to that conclusion on love? Or like, what makes you think that that's the true version of love? Or what have been some of your relationships where you have processed love? Like, ask more questions. And it's actually interesting to hear people's case for that. That's just one of those ones that I hear all the time. It's like someone has cracked the code on the definition of love and everyone else needs to listen. I've also seen it in these holistic spaces, where someone's like a master meditator, right? A friend of mine that has a channel, Expanded Minds Podcast. If you want to check it out, he's got some cool. It's a small podcast right now, but it's growing. And he interviews all these different people from different walks of life. And he interviewed this guy that was like a 15-year Zen monk, right? He's got the big beard. He looks really. His name's Wolf something, and he's got a big following. And I remember hearing this guy interviewed, and he's like, he very calm, very stoic, very relaxed, right? Very holy in some ways, very wise. And he starts getting upset that people don't understand what real meditation is. Not with the interviewer, just that that's not what meditation is. Meditation's this. Okay, so go to Chat GPT, go to Google and say, how many different types of meditations are there? They'll come up with 12. Now, someone saying, in my holy experience of 15 years being a monk, I know exactly what it is. Okay, that's your perspective. That's your opinion based on all this meditation you've done. Okay, I can respect that opinion. I can ask some more questions, but you don't define meditation. You didn't invent the thing. There's 12 different deviations of it, right? This happens all the time, folks. All right, I'm going to step into the chat for a little bit here. So, Black Screen says, yeah, happy wife, sad life. Sorry, I'm Anon. Yes, lots of exes watch this stuff and if you use real name, they can see and feel validated that their ex is struggling and hanging up, and breakup channels also breaks no contact. Good for you, Black Screen. Can I call you BS? Oh my God, love this title. My ex was also, I had to apologize. I don't know what causes people to be this way. Well, here's the interesting thing. Not one person's going to have the same reasons to be this way, right? But I just gave you one example. So, um, earlier where I said people that are bosses or owners of companies tend to be this way. Not all, but also like for example, so where you're at in your life. Let's give a totally different example. Look at like a high school sports star. Let's just say someone in high school is the high school football star. That's an American story, right? And it's the quarterback of the team. And this guy's 6'5". He's a fucking star. He gets good grades. He's got the girlfriend that's a cheerleader. He's got scholarships. I mean, he's a fucking superstar in high school, right? He's got it nicked. Everyone fucking shakes his hand as he walks through school. He gets out of high school. He goes to college. And now he's not the coolest dude, right? There's other guys that are recruited by this college to play football that are really good too, that were studs at their high school. The game has changed. Now, if he has to take some licks, let's say that he get like the first year out of college, he doesn't get to play. He's no longer the best player on the team. There's two other dudes that are 6'5" on the team, so he's no longer special. He's got to deal with that. He's got to figure that out. Hopefully, he's got really good coaches, right? But until he deals with that, he's never wrong. His ego is huge. His ego has been fed for a long time by a certain level of status, a certain level of group acceptance. At that high school he went to, pretty much everyone knew this guy's the winning quarterback. 90% of the school likes him or finds him to have status. He goes somewhere else, he loses all that status. How's he going to deal with it? Now, if someone keeps gaining more and more status, more and more following, they have a lot of trouble when someone's like they're wrong because everyone always tells them they're right. Now, that can be the case with parenting. Someone can have parents that just never lay down the law, never tell their kid they're wrong, never, oh my God, you're a superstar, this, that, and the other. There's a lot that goes into it. There's people like that. It has to do with ego and it has to do with them getting away with it and they haven't really been humbled. It's also, in some cases, in a relationship, it's control. If you keep giving into it, they'll keep doing it and they'll keep controlling the relationship that way. Um, Jess, how you doing? I hope you're well. Trauma puts the focus on them. Any attention is good. Claire, it's just hard for him to ever apologize. I'm just curious what causes this. People don't even know they're doing it a lot of times. They don't know that they lack apology. Some people over apologize, to be fair, and that could be a turnoff in a relationship too, right? Like you don't want someone apologizing all the time. I have clients that, hey, I need to change. Hey, I need to change our appointment. I can't make it. I'm so sorry. It's like, no, it's okay. You gave me 24 hours notice or 48 hours notice. If I can't do it, I'll let you know. Hey, can you please do this day? It's like, yeah, I'm so sorry that I didn't come. It's like, you don't have to say, some people, there's spectrum to apologies too. Apologies are really good when they're needed. When you're like, you were wrong for this, and they know they're wrong and they're specific about the apology. Unknown. That's a great name. Is the ghosting phase girl side necessary for each starting romantic relationship? Unknown, if you're still on, can you elaborate on what you're trying to ask here? Is the ghosting phase for each starting a romantic I need some more details on that. What do you mean by that? I'm a little confused. And I don't want to assume that I know what you mean because it's a little short. If anyone wants to come on, you don't have to use the video, but you can come on and talk and ask the question. So if you unknown, if you wanted to explain that and come on with no video on you, we can do that. But I'm a little the ghosting phase girl side necessary. I'll come back to that though. I'm a little confused on what you're trying to ask. Corey L. Not this isn't Corey Wayne, is it? My insecurities and jealousy has damaged many relationships. Been going through therapy for this. How's it going, Corey? Um, First of all, we all have some insecurities. Being aware of them is the first step. Wanting to get to the root of the insecurity is what really helps. So a lot of times it's like, oh, and this isn't me. When I was 12 years old, I was really fat and I was bullied and made fun of. So that insecurity, when someone gets older, they can be in the best shape of their life and still think they're fat and ugly. I'm just giving you an example. Jealousy, um, we is woven with insecurity, right? Because if someone doesn't think they're good enough, no matter who they're with, they're going to assume that they're going to get cheated on. So just Corey, the key to that, I've been doing this for years, is finding the roots. Like, where did this come from? What's the first time that I've had insecurity or jealousy? Where did I learn this from? But I applaud you for making an effort and being accountable. It's never too late, right? So you look at it like this: even though you messed up relationships in the past, like it's never too late to change. And it's good to hear that it sounds like your therapy's working because I've heard people, oh, therapy doesn't work for me. Then get a different therapist or get a different coach. Try someone else. I've had many clients before, like, oh, I've been to 4 or 5 therapists and I really like your approach. Am I the best? No. It's just that certain approaches vibe with different people. It's not about who's the best therapist or what's the best method. It's about what vibes with you. Crave heartbreak. I don't know. The crave heartbreak, love, the ending, and getting back together stuff. Life is boring without that for some. My couple of guesses as to why. Yeah, some people are used to dramatic relationships. This is a big one There's some women out there that have had, like, dramatic relationships, lots of, drama, right? The guy was stalking you or, um, he was possessive, and everyone thinks from the outside, "Wow, you got out of that relationship. How'd you stay in it?" And all this stuff. They get in a new relationship with a nice guy that does everything right, holds their door open. It's completely foreign to them. It's like someone speaking a second language that they don't speak. It's uncomfortable. It's a turnoff. I know it sounds twisted, but it's just boring to them. Am I telling someone to that's a nice guy that opens doors to stop being that way? No, because there's a woman out there that likes that stuff. Turning the senses within. PS. I knew you'd get a kick out of that. Bullshit works for me. All right, so we got what I mean is that the girls won't come to you easy. They generally pull up first to force you to show her how much you care about her. Well, what I'd say unknown is like, give me a that's why I said if you want to punch that StreamYard thing and ask the specific situation. So I would need to know more to give you a good answer. I need to know more details to what you're talking about. Because you're saying like all girls do this ghosting phase. Not all girls do a ghosting phase. Won't come to you easy. What I mean is that girls won't come to you easy. They generally pull up first to force you to show her how much you care about her. Well, go ahead and punch that link if you want to come on. Ghosting just means that someone disappears. So you've been talking for a while, and this happens on dating apps quite a bit, where someone's like, "Oh, we were talking," and then all of a sudden they just never texted me back and never talked to me again. Could be better. Laugh out loud. Heartbroken. Doing no contact. I got cheated on in the past relationship. I have trouble carrying that into new relationship. All right, that's a real thing, Corey. That's a real thing. Um, was it a bad? Here's the thing about cheating. There's different levels, right? It's like Silver Linings Playbook. You ever see that movie where the guy walks in and his wife's getting banged by another teacher that she works with, and he witnesses it with a song in the background? That's pretty extreme, right? Seeing it, it depends on how it went down. It can be very triggering for people, and there's no like, oh, let's just erase that. I would say that that's gonna just any relationship or any breakup's gonna take you some time, and people are different, right? There's some people that are really easy to move on, and those people have all their ducks in a row in life. Like they're comfortably financially, whatever that is for them. They're pretty secure with things. These are the people going to rotate out into new relationships quicker, easier. But if you're in no contact right now, I would say like, what do you want? So like, are you trying to get back with her? I'm just Corey could be a female name actually too. I have a question. Would I be good or bad girlfriend for a boy because I haven't had my dad everywhere anymore? He died in 20 from a lum accident, mostly cheated, and I'm mostly cheated. I'm sorry for typing, Mac. It's a deep question. I'm sorry for your loss of your dad. Let me get back to these points here. Okay, so love doesn't mean that their perspective is number one, nor does it mean that your perspective is number one. Number eight, right or wrong, they don't deal on opinions. So there's a lot of people out there that just don't even understand what an opinion is and how it's based. Okay, your opinion's based on your life experiences. You're basically, until you realize it, a slave to your experiences. You're a slave to your experiences. So when you realize that all your experiences, you're starting to do this thing where you're like, all right, I do this, I do that. I'm overly jealous. I overreact. Where's it coming from? Where did that seed germinate? Where did that grow from? And then you can start through it. The other thing is that it's very common. You can't get congruency. Okay. So, and like if you look at people that are like, oh, you can manifest things, oh, you can do this. If you don't have congruency in your life, meaning that it's all going down one river, creek, it's all flowing in one direction, and no thought or idea is pushing another away. So, for example, let's say that let's say that you have a thought about your breakup right now, like Corey said earlier. All right, I've been jealous, I'm heartbroken in this past relationship. I have trouble carrying it into my new relationship. So part of you is like, all right, I want to change, I think, right? Because I'm not talking to you directly right now. If you want to come on, you can punch the StreamYard thing. You got to come to a point where even though I'm heartbroken, I'm okay. I'm doing the best I can right now. I got cheated on in the past and I accept that. I know that not all girlfriends are like that. And I know I'm getting better and better every day. That's a congruent statement if you agree with both ends. Now your brain can stop playing this ping pong game of, oh, I feel bad for being jealous, but at the same time, I need to be jealous because all women cheat. That's incongruent. That makes your brain go, you got me? And I've done it before. And Corey, I don't know if you've been on the channel, but the tapping technique that I use cleans that up right away. Correct me if I'm wrong. Girls usually want quick hookups when they find an okay guy, but they stumble on the superstar guy. They would rather want marriage. You're absolutely wrong because you're speaking about women in a generalization. And this isn't me trying to be like, oh, politically correct or anything like that. Um, you've read this somewhere or you've come across this information and now you've made it a law, like that it's absolutely true. I'm not putting you down for this. I'm just telling you my opinion. So whenever someone's like, "Oh, women are like this with okay guys." Okay, so then you have to define an okay guy. Then you have to define a superstar. Now, here's the thing. Most women, okay, because there's always exceptions to a lot of these rules. There's science, there's different things like that, right? Hypergamy is a real thing. So you know hypergamy, right? I used to call it hypergamy. Hypergamy, if I spell it correctly, is a real thing. Most women, there's probably some outliers out there, are going to want to date a man that's equal or higher value to them, that makes them feel safe, secure, and in this day and age, that usually involves making more money. Doesn't mean he needs to make more money than her, but he needs to make a significant amount of money to make her feel safe and secure. Is that true all the time? No. Depends on the environment and the culture. Now, girls usually want quick hookups when they find an okay guy, but they stumble on a superstar guy, they would rather want marriage. It is not absolutely true. It depends on where they're at in their time of their life. So, for example, by the way, unknown, good question. Let's say you meet a woman at 23. Okay. I'm 43 right now, so I have a little bit more wisdom. I don't know how old you are. I'm going to guess you're in your 20s, early 20s. Is that correct? You meet this woman, she's 23 years old. You're 28. You're 28, you're ready for marriage, you just kicked into gear your fucking career, you're making good money, you're doing well. Um, you've dated for the last couple of years, you've had a couple relationships, and you're ready. You're ready to get married, you're ready to have kids, you're ready to settle down. You meet this 23-year-old girl, she's great. You guys got all this shit in common. You like the same sports teams. I mean, it's just vibes. Been together a year, and you're like, you find out she's been DM'd by some other guy that's a superstar. Let's say literally a superstar. Let's say he's a ball player. And you're like, "Oh my god, I knew it. This is what all women do." If that woman was 28, she wasn't on Instagram, she'd be more likely to be where you're at. It's timing and circumstances. Now, there's so many different parts to this. That's why I said good question. So when you read it, this is a very like broad, unnuanced. So what does it mean to be nuanced? Do you know what I mean by that? It means that if you meet me, there's a lot of parts to me that you don't know. Little things. If I meet unknown, if I meet Black Screen or Coriel, right? It's like, oh, I eat pizza, but I don't eat the crust. What? Oh, actually, I like to lift weights, but I'll never do bench press. There's just weird things about people. There's all these apply to the breakups and the relationships. So when you're like, oh, it's not that simplistic in relationships that like a girl's after an okay guy and they'll go for a superstar. It depends on where they're at in life. It depends on their environment. Now, here's the thing. Here's a good way to put it. Are you with me, unknown? Say yes or no, please. Now, if you have a girlfriend that's 23, she's into you, and you're an okay guy, whatever standard that is, and that okayness is related directly to your environment. You understand what I mean by that? So you're like, oh, I'm an okay guy. Based on what? If you live in New York City on Wall Street, that would be based on probably wearing a suit, talking finances all the time. That would be like okay in that Wall Street area. You live in Nebraska, okay would be what? Having a corn farm? So it's different in different places. You with me? Now, if your girlfriend or partner, whoever you're dating, has access to superstars in your community or your or your subcultures, then she's probably going to be more attracted to them for sure. It's just how is she interacting with them? So, that, like, for example, if she works as an intern for the San Francisco 49ers, my favorite football team, right? There's a good chance she's going to get hit on by one of the players. And let's just say that you're a structural engineer making 100 grand a year, and you're like, I do pretty good. Like I make good money, and I'm a catch. And you're like, this isn't fair. She left me for a 49er. Well, was that just that women do that? Or is that she was in a certain environment that's going to produce some kind of result like that more likely? Then if you go even a layer deeper, you're like, what kind of person is she? Is she adventurous? Is she the type to take chances? Is she the type to risk things? Well, all right. So you're like super handsome, super smart, right? Not everyone's attracted to the same thing. You can line up 100 guys and you can line up 100 women, and maybe 80% of the guys, women would agree, like these are the top 10 best looking guys. Okay. There would still be 10% of the women that would like 10% of the guys that weren't great looking. So it's just not an absolute. Does that make sense? Bottom line is you got to deal with what you have. Whoever you are as a man, if you want to focus on your looks, which has never been one of my focuses, and you can see that in my videos. But if you want to focus on it, there's ways to focus on it. People that look better, they put work into it. If you got a stylist and you go to the gym and do all those things, you can look your best. You still might not be able to compete with the guy that's 6'5", famous and rich. I don't know. But does that mean that, all women will let you go for that guy? No, it has to do with where that woman's at in life and her own individual character. I mean, you could splice it back to as a man, if you met a woman with, what you're attracted to, which is different for different guys, and she was really hot and you were talking to her and she was interested in you while you had a girlfriend that wasn't as hot, would you be tempted? I mean, is this and the next question I would ask you is this scenario that you're mentioning true to you? So, like, is this something that happened to you? So let me give you an example. There was a time in my life when I was like in my 20s, and my job wasn't going well. And my girlfriend had gotten a new job at the time. She's around all these successful guys. She was in a rich industry. Like, she was getting hit on all the time, and I could feel things were changing. It wasn't the number one reason we broke up, and nor was it like she just left me. We ended up breaking up. Actually, I ended up breaking up with her, and it was a variety of things. I remember thinking, like, afterwards, "Oh, women just don't come back afterwards when you're down or you're not doing well or you're not at your best, they'll just leave you." That was just a narrative I had in my head. There's plenty of women out there that'll stay with a guy that are enablers. So, when you if you get into this neighborhood narrative, this storyline unknown, it'll be true for you every time. So who are you, the okay guy or the superstar? And why are you allowing yourself such a extreme level of, like, is there anything in between the okay guy and the superstar? Do I have superstar moments? There's women out there that, yeah, they're not loyal. Yeah, they'll be in these situations. Is it true to all women? No, absolutely not. If you start clinging to that narrative, you'll make it true again and again because your subconscious always wants to be correct. Your ego always, so when you come up with a story that makes a lot of sense to you based on one experience, or let's say you go and find 100 videos that agree with it. That's what we have with narcissism now. It's like narcissism is rampant in American culture. All your superstar athletes, not all, I should take that back, or musicians, they have a lot of it in them, right? And these are people that we look up to. So it's like, oh, my ex is a narcissist. It's like, yeah, they might have an element of that in them or in their characteristics, but maybe it's from the culture that they've grown up in. On a different level, what did you do to deal with that? What did you do to accept that? But if you keep trying to get, like, more acceptance, like, "Oh, my ex is this, my ex is that," how is that even serving you? How is that even helping you? The storyline you wanna go with, if your ex was, like, a real narcissist or a personality disorder, is like, "How do I get out? How do I move on? How do I detangle from this person?" Those individuals are highly manipulative. You just wanna get away. You don't wanna start telling everyone, "Oh, I was with a and then you find someone else, "Oh, I was with a narcissist too." Like, let's have coffee and spend 2 hours talking about it and talk about all the videos we've watched. And then what happens is every time you go on a date, every time you meet someone who's narcissist, narcissist, these are huge channels. They're huge. People love them. It's like, and these people are like, I'm a narcissist expert. It's like, okay, that sounds narcissistic. Narcissism, like the way it's unfolded, it's not that it's not true. It's just not. We have people hunting, filtering for, I know a narcissist when I see it. Okay, good for you. I call it whistleblowing. It's like if you were on a bus or an airplane with, like, 100 random people and you were like, I had an ex that was a narcissist and they hurt me and they were selfish and they lied to me and they manipulated me. Like 100 people on the plane are going to go. Some of them are going to go, "Oh, I'm really sorry to hear that." They don't fucking care that much. So when you like they and maybe 10 people are like, "Oh, I've been with a narcissist too. Come sit down over here." How is this helping you? Now, if you air that out to a coach or a therapist, or I've talked to clients about it. Let's air it out. Let's dissect it. All right, why are they a narcissist? What have they done? What are the problems? Let's gut this motherfucker. Like, let's go through it. Let's find all the things that add up to this. Let's not just call someone that. Let's just, that just wraps it all up. Oh, I've been a victim of a narcissist. It's like, what did they do? What do you mean? What did they do? It's like, what did they do? Oh, they lied to me. What they lie about? Let's get it all on the table. Divulging that kind of stuff can devalue it because you bring it up to the surface. You're like, all right. And then we go through it, you cry about it, you unpack it, you untangle it. It's like you're storing in all these moments, right? Like all these moments from the narcissist. You're storing them in you. And you get to a certain point and instead of telling people what happened or really airing things out, it's almost like those feelings and those incidents, you have to bring them to the surface, either let them go or repackage them in a place that you can deal with them. Just calling everything one category, like, oh, they're just a narcissist. It's just equivalent of like just calling someone a loser. It's like, yeah, they've had a lot of things that would qualify them as a loser according to you, but I'm sure they've had some fucking wins in their time. Narcissism isn't one of those things where people are like, I've decided to be a narcissist. It has to do with their environment that they've grown up in, has to do with the people around them. Like a friend of mine or a former friend of mine that I would say that had narcissistic tendencies, which is a more proper thing to say, probably, because I'm not an expert on labeling people like that, nor do I like labeling people like that. But it was one of those things when you hung out, you almost were exhausted by the end, and everything was about his life, what was going on with him, um, and he was always taking advantage of people, and I you couldn't see it being done to me, but taking advantage of, like, having them do work for him or having them, run errands, all kinds of stuff. But he also this same guy, like, at 12 years old, his parents dropped him off at a, like, a juvenile delinquent home, and he was only supposed to be there for a week, and they fucking left him till he was 18. So someone was like, "Oh, yeah, well, this guy's kind of an asshole." This is like it's like instead of, like, holding that over his head, I said, "Fuck, man, that's fucked up." Where did he develop that repertoire of acting that way? It was there. Doesn't mean you gotta be friends with them or forgive them, but seek to understand, not to be understood. It really helps you out in letting go of someone. It's like, "Wow, I didn't understand that upbringing." Does that make sense? Those are hard breakups too, like, some young guy. Is this alright, so let me break is unknown, are you still on? I'll break down another story for you. Black screen, thanks for the comments. Let me money can't buy validation and attention. Hey, let them try the superstar and learn that lesson too. Here's the thing about a superstar, it ain't forever. It doesn't always age well, okay? So there's pockets in your time when you're like, "I was a fucking superstar for a year or 2." It's like I said, the high school football star, fucking superstar. Maybe that high school football star goes on to be a college star, but then they don't get drafted to the NFL. That's a hard fall, right? And then they just take a job as a contractor with a family member or something like that, telling everyone about how they played in college. But they did get to be a superstar for a year or 2. So a lot of times it's not forever. And no one's bulletproof. Even the person that you think's a superstar or super handsome and super smart, um, it doesn't apply to everything. They're gonna have weak moments. They're gonna have some things. They're gonna have some chinks in their armor. But there was a client of mine. We still talk now. Sometimes he hits me up. There's a lot of clients come with breakup stuff, and then years later, it's like, "Hey, let me just talk to you about work or some other issues. I'm here for you." So he was in high school sweetheart, right? What's your age range? Unknown. High school sweetheart, right? Like, and he was like not a sports star, but like popular kid in high school and stuff like that. I think he got an injury like at 2019 or 20. He got an injury. You're 35, all right. He got an injury. Great age, by the way. He gains all this weight. Girlfriend ends up with some soccer star, elite guy. Um, and he's just, devastated, right? He's going to all the coaches. He's talked to me. He's talked to everyone. And he gains all this weight. And so he's, showing pictures of like, look at how I looked before and stuff like that. And he never really recovers. But there's dudes that are in high school that are nerds all of high school, don't have a lot of friends, aren't the cool kids, and then 28, they punch it into gear, they get a great job, they start going to the gym, and now they're the 28-year-old superstar. You got me? So the idea of you maximizing at 35, which is a great age, by the way, because you got your wisdom. 35 is a fucking great age as a man. You got wisdom and youth, right? You're gonna probably live to 80, 90, 100 years old. You're not even at the halfway point, and you still should look young for your age. So, going back to this story, this guy never got back to that status he had in high school, so he was a superstar. Like I said, some people have a year or two where they're superstar within their subculture or their society or their job, and then it ends. It's hard to keep that going. Now let's look at other examples. Michael Jordan. Is he still a superstar basketball player? No. What's the reality? Age, right? Like, is he a superstar as a marketing person, as a legend? Yeah, sure. Is he a superstar basketball player today? No, he was. Question, coach. My girlfriend has a mother that is narcissistic. She hits me with a question like, when are you giving my daughter a ring? Or why can't you make me a grandmother? She gets exhausting. All right, so what do you want? Is that how long have you been together? What do you want? So when you're dealing with that, do you want to eventually get married? Like, putting the question to the side, why does that bother you? Right? So obviously she wants her daughter to, and I actually had a girlfriend like this before that her mom was like that, and my perspective is different now. I think that there's a difference between like badgering or being over the top to actually, like, I'd like my daughter to have kids and get married and have a respectable relationship. That's actually not a crazy thing for a mom to want. How she goes about imposing that on you is different. The fact that her mom has some kind of morals and standards that she thinks that that's a good thing for her daughter, okay, I can see where that's coming from. But how long have you been together, and do you wanna eventually get married? And what's your guys' age range? Because women between 33 and about, I'd say 32 to about 36, highly sensitive about the marriage and kids thing. Because there's a shot clock, dude. Do you know what I mean? There there's an expiration date on that. So that's one of the reasons why it gets a little testy. Late 20s, early 30s, the mom knows, like, hey, you ain't gonna have that much time. In this day and age, it's like, oh, I don't need a kid. Oh, I don't need to get married. For women, they get to late 30s, early 40s, their options dwindle quickly on having a kid. And that's a real thing. So that's where that pressure kind of comes from. Now, how you respond to that is that, if that's what you're asking me, because, and why would that be narcissistic of the mom? I'm not defending the mom, just wondering, like, well, why would that fall under that? The mom that I had that I dealt with that before, sometimes you can just you don't need to give in or be angry. You can say, that's a really good question, to be continued. Or, what's the honest answer? Hey, I'm just trying to build things up right now. That's a good question. Or you can just smile. You don't need to answer it. But what's your real answer? I'm not ready to get married. I don't want to have kids. Does your girlfriend, what does your girlfriend want? What does she think about the mother? Did your ex have toes? Yes. Narcissist. Join my recovery program, $100. Oh, man. I was just talking to someone today that did coaching with me over a year ago, and he's like, "Man, I really appreciated that you didn't email me 5 times to get coaching again or try to grift me." I've had so many people try to groom me to do that. "Oh, you could charge like $1,000 for one coaching session. You should be doing this." Like, I wanna help people, I wanna make money, but I wanna find a balance. Come on, man. I'm annoyed with people like that. Why would I wanna be that person? Funny, there are anxietyist channels, anxiety the funny thing about anxiety is the more of these and I'm on YouTube, I have a channel, I'm talking right now. The more channels you watch, the more perspectives you get, the more fucking anxiety you get because you're like, what's the right answer? They're all perspectives and opinions. The best advice you can get on your relationship or situation is this: talk about your individual relationship or problems with myself at rightmac.com. Shameless plug, but a good plug. If we don't find some clarity moving forward, I'll give you your money back. I always tell people that. I'm not interested in someone being upset or like not getting what they want. The reason being is that we can just talk about your problem. When you go on YouTube, what you're doing is you're trying to fit your problems and relationship into someone else's narrative. That's what you're trying to do. Think about it. It's like, oh, yeah, that's kind of what I'm going through, but not really. Oh, yeah, this guy that has 10 million views and he must be really smart. Oh, that's what I didn't see. It's scaled advice. You want advice about your situation as an individual because you're nuanced and different. You want advice on specific situations. So at least you're like, or you just want to be heard. The idea of going and watching 100 videos and going, yeah, that's me. Let me watch another video. Yeah, that's me. Oh, I didn't know that about me. What you're doing is you're just taking in mental food and having it imposed on you. And then you'll go, yeah, that's really true. But I read in this book, your mind starts trying to make connections. And then your mind's like, well, what's true? Whoa. Well, this guy has a better point. Oh, well, this really hot chick with some nice tatas. I like her opinion, right? I see these channels come up where these women have these low cut blouses. There's channels go 0 to 100,000 views in about 7 weeks. They recycle all the stuff that, most of the common base knowledge that's being recycled right now. Chat GPT is just going to make it worse, right? There's going to be more and more people going tailored advice, like tailored content to trigger you to buy my XBAC kit. There's going to be more of that than ever before. But the reality is, how are you getting advice based on your intricate stories of what actually happened? Hey, this is what happened. It's like, all right, so like this, my girlfriend's mom always is asking about a ring. All right, like if I were gonna unpack that a little deeper, it's like, all right, how serious are you about this woman? Do you want to get married? Does your girlfriend want to get married? There's so many other things to unpack from it, and then you can clean it up, make a better decision. I'm never the one like, hey, you have to do this, you have to do this. Let's go through your choices. All right, number one, number two, number three. Well, you can do this, you can do that. And then sometimes people go, I don't want to do that. That's progress. You're making a decision on what you don't want to do. So your brain goes, what's the alternative? I'm not, I, I'm not needing to be right. You just need to have a productive conversation and insight on what you want to do for your specific detailed situation instead of going on TikTok or one of these things and going, oh, yeah, all women cheat. Oh, yeah, all women are narcissists because of this. That's just, um, it's just power of the mob mentality. And it's sheep behavior a little bit because you're falling into a movement. Can you imagine some of these people that are subscribed to these narcissism hunter channels? I'm not saying narcissism's not real. I'm just saying the idea that you're part of a movement that identifies these people. And that's a real thing. You can, have dealt with a crazy narcissist. We used to just call them assholes or jerks, but now we've got, clinical terms that hold way more weight. Um, and now you're into this movement for a year or 6 months. Wouldn't you rather detangle from that person, detangle from that narrative, and see, like, all right, now that I know, and knowing's half the battle, as the great G.I. Joe said, now that I know what a narcissist is, I can spot them. Thank you, God. And then you get in a dating situation, or you get in a friendship situation, or a boss situation. You're like, all right, I know this. And so, spotted another one. Let me get to the Discord, and we can air this out about all these things. All right, I got about 5 minutes. Any closing questions from anyone? Jawdism, does that help you? Is that a pit bull? Got a funny story about that. My parents got a couple pit bulls they inherited from my niece, and one of them just bit up the pool guy. You know that pit bulls are actually not legal in some countries? You cannot own one. Did that help you at all, unknown, those answers? Let's see here. Claire was on deck for a little bit. Good to see you, Claire. It's funny. When I first started my channel years back, you used to come on and make comments too. It's been a while. Andrew Aragon, good to have you duck your head in the room. Unknown, UK. BS, black screen. Going through a tough moment, but dealing with it with humor and comedy. I appreciate that. CL, also known as Coriel. What's the L for? One thing I would just say in closing about Unknown, if you're still on, black screen says I watched those with the sound off. I have an answer I want to get. Yeah, I'm 29. She's 24. Her mom rules the household. I like taking things slow, but the mom is a tyrant. I may book for a personal coaching. Absolutely. If you don't find it useful and helpful, I'll give you your money back. I'm sincere in that too. Her mom rules the household, meaning you live in the mom's house. If you live in the mom's house, then you're gonna have to deal with certain shit. My question would be like, if your girl's 24, does she want marriage? Is she pushing for that agenda? And how long have you been together? But if what I would say about that, if you live in the household, you need to get out of the household. I know things are expensive in different places. I'm not discounting that. But one thing I would say is I call it mental martial arts. If she's gonna throw those at you and it bothers you, don't let her show. Don't let it show. But I had a mother like that of a girlfriend of mine. I remember her telling me this was years back. At the time, I was a teacher at a university and professor. And she was like, "You have to do this. You have to dress like this. You're a professor. You have to do this. You have to." I said, "I have to? I have to." She's like, "Yeah." I said, "I have to eat. I have to drink water. I have to sleep to live." And she's like, she didn't know what to do with that. I left her alone. We're talking. And she was one of those ones at the time, like, she didn't know how to use computers and websites and all this stuff. And she was starting a small business. Like I won't say what she was doing because there'll be a bunch of jokes in the comments. And she's like, "Oh, I don't think I need a website." I said, "You have to get a website. You have to learn how to interact with your clients. You have to." And she went, and then my girlfriend told me later on, she goes, "Mac's an asshole. He's a smart ass." in a different language, she said. Better than a mother that pays no interest. It's a good quality to see that girlfriend will have inherited. It's not a horrible thing in that sense. It's just like, how far is it going, right? One thing I do really well is like, let's look at it and see if you're not seeing something in the right light. Not to change your mind, but seeing some options. So what happens is when we have a problem, sometimes we get deadlocked on there's no answer, there's no alternative, and so there's probably some things you can work with. It's not a horrible thing, but the mom. Here's one thing that is true: that daughter is going to have some of those characteristics. So just always keep. I don't mean to scare you or anything like that, but people used to say, "Oh, look at the mom, and that's going to be your girlfriend in a few years. She seems to be living life she never had through her daughter." If that makes sense. Is that boredom? Because me and my girlfriend couldn't be happier taking things slow. Well, if your girlfriend's cool, dude, just don't let it get to you. Just limit those interactions. And when she says that, just go, just give her a smile. Don't give any kind of ammunition. Don't be like, I've never been married, but I've certainly had family members or, someone say, "Oh, you guys gonna get married? Or you gonna this?" Never let it get to you. If you guys are happy, if you guys are living there, you're gonna have to deal with that. There's always a sacrifice or a trade-off within certain situations. If you're living at her house, you're gonna have to deal with that. Do you have to give into it? No. But just realize if you gave her an answer like, "We're really happy right now. I'm only 29." That's not what she wants to hear. So just be like, "You know what?" Mhm, mhm, mhm. I remember my sister, who's passed away, uh, one of her boyfriends when she was younger, she got pregnant early. This guy was in all kinds of trouble. He's an ex-convict. I think he used to I know he used to deal drugs, and, this is a long time ago. But when he first met my parents or met me, I was 5 years younger, so I was a little teenager. Quiet, didn't speak unless spoken to, very polite, very calm, and you know what? You would never know he was an ex-convict or did time in jail, right? But it was a great approach. You can't dislike someone that's just quiet or calm. You know what I mean? Like, that's the approach he took rather than, "Oh, I'm great, I'm this." It's like, if you're around that mom and you're polite, you're respectful, you can't lose. If that's not enough, then fine. If she keeps badgering you with those questions, you just go, "Oh, yeah, okay." Just like you'd bob and weave in a boxing match. You're just like, "Okay, yeah. Mm. When are you guys gonna get married?" "I don't know. That's a good question, mom. We're doing really well right now, though. I want a granddaughter." "I know. I've heard you. I know. I understand. Do you understand me? I understand. Hey, sorry, I'm at the gym. I'm doing no contact to get myself. I assume she's living her best life and good for her." Yeah, well, living your best life is just moment to moment. Anyone that goes, "Oh, I'm living my best life," it's like, listen, shit happens in life and it's unexpected and no one's bulletproof. So, Corey, thanks for coming on deck. If you want to do a session, I'm here for you. She seems to be living the life she never had. Okay. Sorry to hear that, mate. Thanks, BS. I appreciate you. I do have a call right now, so I'm going to let it go. Good to have some people on the live stream today. If you want to book a session, go to rightmac.com. If you don't, all the best. Hope you enjoyed the stream. Late.